back to Feel Free to Disagree, the only video podcast on YouTube where we talk about interesting philosophical arguments. I make a case for them, then you disagree in the comments. I want to talk today about why I believe disagreement is so important, and I want to make the case for arguments. I want to make the argument for arguments, and I really think it's the kind of thing that once you understand it can really change the way you think about the world and about debate in general. So to that end, I want to start today with a story. In the year 2035, there's an alien that crash lands on Earth, and he's instantly fascinated by the way us Earthicans communicate, and he decides to take up English unnaturally. It's an alien movie, so he crash lands in DC, and he goes to the Library of Congress and decides to read every single book in historical order. When he gets to The Republic by Plato, he's instantly transfixed. He reads the whole book in a day, and he reads no others. He leaves the Library of Congress. He's swarmed by interviewers who have been stalking him the whole time, and they ask him, why this book? Why stop here? What did you learn that was so important? Why stop at this book? And he just said, why not? The reporter just says, I don't know, and moves on. But the alien's obviously sad he didn't argue with him. And in that moment, the alien understood why Socrates was put to death, why there was so much unnecessary war and pain in human history. He understood the power of the indirect proof. The indirect proof is a fascinating thing that functions based on the way we understand statements. To illustrate this, think of the statement, John went for a run this morning. As of right now, I don't know if that statement is true or false, but I do know that it must either be true or false, and it can only be true or false. I mean, either John went for a run this morning or he didn't. There's no situation where he didn't go for a run but also did, and there's no situation where he did neither. So one of those must be the case. So apply this to all statements. We know that a statement can either be true or false, and it can not be both true and false, or neither true or false. We know that a conjunction of statements like John went for a run this morning and John didn't go for a run this morning are naturally contradictory, and therefore whatever argument that brought them about is false. This is something that's really fascinating. It's how the indirect proof works. For example, if you say something like you want to try to prove that stealing is morally wrong, you can start with the assumption, you assume that it's morally correct, and then if a contradiction arises from the assumption that it's correct, you know that it must be false. For example, you assume that stealing is a good thing to do, but then you arrive at the contradiction that, if stealing is a good thing to do, then it's good to take people's private property. But we know that it's a bad thing to take people's private property because all humans have a fundamental right to property, or something like that. Therefore, a contradiction has arisen, and you know that stealing must be morally wrong. But you notice something interesting about that last example is that we assumed that property is the natural right of human beings, and it might actually be the case that it's not. And to this end, a lot of moral arguments can really feel like they're just never-ending spirals that get further and further away from the main point. But these kind of debates are really, really, really far from pointless. It reveals to us our biases and our beliefs that we hold without question. The Greeks called these axioms. Why do we believe that human beings have the right to property or anonymity or life or whatever? The indirect proof is the kind of thing that reveals these biases to you, and it reveals your logic behind these things. It's something Socrates definitely mastered. He disagreed with everyone on everything. And the reason wasn't because he was just trying to be pointlessly argumentative. The reason is because if I take the affirmative on something and someone else takes the negative on something, and we disagree until one of us arises at a contradiction, we've come to the truth of the matter. That's what the alien understood in the story, and it's why he was so sad that the interviewer didn't debate him. To the alien, disagreement wasn't some strange form of mental combat as we so often think it is, but it's a way that two individuals can come to a fuller understanding of truth about life and the way the world works. I mean, in this sense, disagreement it's beautiful, and it's very important to functioning as an independent human being. So if you want to try your hand at disagreement through the indirect method, do the Socratic thing and find yourself a friend, take up a position like stealing is good or stealing is bad, have one person take the affirmative, have the other person take the negative, and hash it out, have the argument. You know that when one of you arrives at a contradiction, then whatever logic you use to arrive at that contradiction must be false, and you can come to better conclusions about business, about relationships, about literally everything through the indirect proof, this sort of roundabout way of coming to a fuller understanding of the truth. If you'd like to disagree with me, I'd be more than happy to hear it, so leave whatever objections you have in the comments below. And if you're a nihilist, who cares? Why bother? All right. God bless.